Welcome, friendly viewers, to Animal World, our co-inhabitants. Today we will head to the small coastal town of Barwon Heads in the state of Victoria, Australia, to visit Mrs. Tayri Gordon, founder of the Jiralinga Koala and Wildlife Sanctuary. The sanctuary, a self-funded animal rescue facility where injured land and marine animals receive loving care, was founded in 1979 by Mrs. Gordon. The name Jiralinga means seek a home for a kangaroo in the language of the Indigenous Australian people. Each year, Jiralinga receives an average of 5,000 calls for aid to ill, injured and orphaned animals, and has 3 hospital units to care for various species. One unit is dedicated to koalas, the second to birds, and the third to other types of animals. Since the sanctuary's creation, it has been given much well-deserved recognition. For example, Jiralinga received both Australian and international press coverage for its tireless work in searching for and treating injured animals victimised by the Ash Wednesday bushfires that affected the states of Victoria and South Australia in February 1983. In addition, Tayri Gordon has received many personal honours for her work with the disabled and animals, including the 2003 Centenary Medal, a prestigious award given by Australia's government to those who have made a significant contribution to Australian society. Mrs. Gordon was also named Senior Australian of the Year 2004, another important national award given for the same reason. Let's begin by learning how Mrs. Gordon formed a special bond with animals as a child.
I'm delighted to tell you that as I grew up, I didn't have any children to play with, and so my playmates became a cat, a frog, birds in the garden, and I would dress up my little kitten, put him in my pram and wheel him around, and he became my best friend. He was the one I chatted to, and I found that when we were sitting in the garden with him in the dolly pram, that a bird would come down and listen too. So he would land on the pram. The cat never made any attempt to eat him or chase him, and we would sit quietly in the garden.
In her youth, horses also became Mrs. Gordon's fast friends.
As I grew up, I went to 29 schools before I got through primary school, so each was a new place, so you never got to make friends. And on one big farm we were on, they had horses, and I had to walk for an hour to get to the school bus. And it was lonely walking back, sometimes almost dark, and so I would call to the horses, and they would come, you know, from a great distance, and you would hear them. You'd hear the hooves thundering down the valley and up the hill, and then they would all circle around, and some of them would raise their front legs and they would nuzzle me, and I just felt so special, just so special that even when I'm even feeling a little bit sad, I can bring that feeling back, and I can feel the horses and I can feel the breath on my shoulders, and so even today I can still relate to those animals.
From these early experiences, Mrs. Gordon came to recognise the healing power and love that animals possess, and saw that others could benefit from interacting with animals as well. Thus, Jiralinga serves both as a home for rescued animals and a place for people in need of nurturing and love. For instance, the sanctuary conducts a special program in which vulnerable members of the community can care for the animals and improve their lives at the same time. Typical participants in the program include the elderly, those with disabilities or special needs, and those wishing to begin a new path in life.
Jiralinga is a place where people who are in need are turned around and shown they are needed. And they find out that by working with other people like that and working with the animals, they find out that they are needed. We've had Adopt a Granny program where a lady who couldn't talk and hadn't talked for 2 years now tells everybody about the little koalas she looks after.
Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. We'll be right back with more from our interview with Terry Gordon, founder of the Juralinga Koala and Wildlife Sanctuary. Welcome back to Animal World, Our Co-Inhabitants, where we are speaking with Terry Gordon, founder of the Juralinga Koala and Wildlife Sanctuary, located in Barwon Heads, a town in the state of Victoria, Australia, that provides medical care and shelter to injured wildlife. In February 2009, the state of Victoria in southern Australia experienced some of the most severe bushfires or wildfires ever. To support the sanctuary's loving treatment of the many affected animals, Supreme Master Ching Hai kindly contributed 2,000 Australian dollars for medicines and other needed medical supplies. Juralinga is a place for healing for both animals and humans, where Mrs. Gordon invites vulnerable members of society to volunteer and interact closely with koalas, kangaroos and other animal friends so that their lives are uplifted.
We had a young man who'd been in a car accident and he could only rake, stand and shuffle, and then he'd take a step and shuffle again. When he left us, he was communicating, he was thinking, he had his mind working. And one day he said to me, "The wallabies are unhappy today." And I said, "Pardon?" They looked all right to me. He said, "No, the kangaroos and the wallabies are sad today." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because too many people are looking after them and they only want me." We had another group of disabled people who'd come in and helping him. So he felt threatened. And I said, "The wallabies are fine sharing you." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Normally the wallabies only have you, but today they are happy because they are sharing you with someone else who needs to be needed." The next week he offered to take a disabled boy and show him how to work with the wallabies. So you see, even through turning that around, his jealousy, the following week he was able to share what he'd learnt. So I just think Juralinga gives that opportunity to people to grow, to share love, and to understand that everyone needs to be needed.
The animals are truly aware of what people are experiencing in their lives.
You get an animal placed in your hand. He feels the pain in your heart and he might simply look up, look at you, rub noses and go, "Nyeh." And they see the love and or even the sorrow within your heart. And so they can translate that and they can turn it around.
Through the years, many people's lives have been touched by Mrs. Gordon's loving concern. For example, she relates the following story of a person who was completely transformed after coming to Juralinga.
Just recently I had a young person come back who I hadn't seen for 7 years. But they said through being at Juralinga, they'd given up the drugs, they'd given up drinking, and they had their own business.
Throughout her life, Mrs. Gordon has been caring for animals.
I never set about to have a Juralinga. It's not something I seek to do. It's something that makes my life. I had visions as a young person of growing up and having a career, and I had a career along the way. And yet I gave it up to help at the Geelong Animal Welfare Home for $50 a week. And I then used the $50 a week to help animals. I would go along before I started working there and I would bath and clip and buy them, goodos, and they would be happy because they were clean and loved.
For For those dogs at the Geelong Animal Welfare Home that went unadopted, Mrs. Gordon provided care until someone took them in.
I felt guilty about the few that didn't get a home, so I started paying for them to stay until I could find them a home. And at one stage I was boarding 29 dogs.
We asked Mrs. Gordon if she has a message for our viewers and the world.
Yes, I have a message. Open up your heart. Everyone has something that you can take in, that you can absorb, you can love. And look at the dog, look at the cat around you, and share your love with them. Recognise the birds in your garden and realise that all of them are here for us to grow from, to absorb the love from all those things, the beauty of an opening rose, the love of a sunset. Take a moment, think about the good in the world, and just do one thing to pass it on to another person. And when they say to you, thank you, what do I owe you? Say, take a moment, look, love, and pass it on to someone else. Never expect something back in return. Ask them to pass it on. And if we could just each day pass it on to one person, then the love and the tranquility and the universe will come together in a much better way.
We would like to express our deep appreciation to Mrs. Terry Gordon for her kind treatment of the ill and injured animals of Victoria, and for uplifting her community by giving those needing love the wonderful chance to interact with the koalas and the other gentle residents of Juralinga. We pray that the healing she bestows on the animals and people of Victoria will continue for many years to come. Thank you, compassionate viewers, for joining us on Animal World, Our Co-Inhabitants. Coming up next is enlightening entertainment after noteworthy news. May the love of our animal friends forever light our path.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/AW